What's going on, you guys? It's your boy Patrick, aka Addicted to Combat, back for another week of best bets and props where I go over all of my betting action for this weekend's UFC card, which is UFC Vegas 75, headlined by two middleweights, Marvin Vettori versus Jared Cannonier at the UFC Las Vegas Apex this weekend. It's a very fun card between these two former title challengers in the main event, but we also have a lot of really light weight classes on this card. Many flyweight bouts, many bantamweight bouts, and those do usually make some of the more entertaining fights and competitive ones. So there's some newer fighters on this card, some returning favorites as well, but I think a lot of these fighters have pretty good clear-cut game plans to look better than they did in their previous fights that they've had. So as we go through the card, I'll mention which ones I'm talking about, and I am betting on 7 of these fighters out of 14. So a lot of money lines this week. That's all I'm playing. I'll tell you what the money lines were that I got, what they are now, and you can kind of see where I beat the line movement and where I screwed it up on a couple of spots. So I do have a lot of props to talk about in the second part of the video, but I'm not playing any props this week. It's more of a boring moneyline game plan, just taking the stab on a lot of fighters and hoping we come out the other side of the majority of these results to make some profit. So we're going to be going over 4 favorites, 3 underdogs, and I'm going to try to make it brief like I do in this video. So check out my full card breakdown, which I did on Monday. Check out my live stream I did with Aaron the Dog on Tuesday for like the fine details of how these play out. But other than that, hit the like, hit the subscribe. Check out the description for my affiliate link to Bet Online, one of the better sports books for mixed martial arts betting. And it's a good way to help out the channel, as well as getting yourself a 50% welcome bonus for joining Bet Online. So without further ado, we can go into the first money line. Ronnie Lawrence at bantamweight to defeat Daniel Argueta, and this is a guy with a lot of UFC experience already in Ronnie Lawrence. He's an MMA wrestler taking on Daniel Argueta, who's more of a traditional collegiate-style American wrestler. But I like Ronnie Lawrence's weaponized cardio, and he's got a big striking edge in this fight. So Daniel Argueta, super basic, not very good defense either. So between the cardio edge, the MMA wrestling game plan mixed with the striking to set it up, I think Ronnie Lawrence is pretty good. I got him at minus 155, put just 1.55 units to win 1 in return. Ronnie Lawrence, this is where I beat the line movement on this. He's currently minus 185 to minus 190. I'd say that's about where I would price this money line. So not a whole lot of extra value, but I do think he comes through and wins. Just rinse and repeating takedowns in rounds 2 and rounds 3 and doing a lot of good striking work early in this fight. So that's the bantamweight about to kick it off. We're moving down to flyweight for the next fight. I've got money on Zhalgas Zhumagulov taking on the debuting fighter Felipe Bunis. And this is a riskier money line because Zhalgas is 1-5 in the UFC at this point. He's had a lot of really bad decisions that could have gone either way, his way or his opponent's way, but they've all gone his opponent's way. The Raulian Paiva fight was close. The Jeff Molina fight, I thought he won. And at the end of last year against Charles Johnson, super close result there for Zhalgas that did not go his way. So, aside from betting Zhalgas here, I do like the fight goes to split decision, but moreover than that, that's just because of the bad luck of Zhalgas. At minus 150 on his money line, I got him at, I put 1.5 units to win 1 on Zhalgas. I just think he's got better skills in this fight. Plain and simple, his striking is better. He's going to be working the body quite a bit, blitzing in range with those combinations, and keeping the volume pretty high. And his takedown offense is good, and his takedown defense is even better. So against Felipe Bunis, who's a debuting Brazilian submission fighter, he's got decent boxing, but it leaves a lot of ability for Zhalgas to pick up the volume on him. Felipe can be caught kind of admiring his work, waiting for his next perfect combination or strike. It can be very low volume, and every time that Bunis has stepped up in competition so far, he's kind of fallen short. He fought Jussier Formiga, former UFC fighter, to a loss by finish. He went over to the ACA and fought some grappler-type opponents there, came up short as well. So if Zhalgas can mix in strikes, put Bunis on his back for the majority of 3 rounds here, I think he wins a decision. So give me Zhalgas there. Like I said, minus 150, 1.5 units to win 1. But it's going to be a sketchy fight because we know how much the judges don't seem to favor the style of Zhalgas, and he is guilty of doing some bad habits like clinching when he shouldn't, keeping the striking count rather close. But this should be a fight he's fired up to separate himself from the pack. So the next flyweight fight I'm betting on is Dennis Bondar to defeat Carlos Hernandez. And this is Dennis Bondar's sort of real debut in the UFC. About a year and a half ago, he injured his arm pretty quickly in the fight with Malcolm Gordon and got TKO'd there. But at plus 102 on the money line, I put 1 unit on him to defeat Carlos Hernandez. Hernandez is a decent striker. He'll have a striking edge in this fight over Bondar, who's a Ukrainian wrestler type of opponent. But Hernandez needs a lot of space, and he can be hesitant to throw some of those strikes. He's got some good spinning kicks. He's got some good long striking combinations, but Hernandez will often move backwards more than he should, back himself up towards the cage, and not really let some of those strikes go confidently. And I think against Dennis Bondar, that's problematic because Bondar will shove him backwards into the cage, rinse and repeat those takedowns. He's a very good chain wrestler with decent endurance, and he's a good finisher on the ground especially. 16 wins for Dennis Bondar, 16 wins inside the distance, a lot of submissions, and I think he picks up another submission here against Carlos Hernandez, probably in round 2. But right now, the money did go in the favor of Dennis Bondar. I didn't expect that at all. I paid plus 102 just for 1 unit investment. He's now like a minus 120, minus 130 favorite over Carlos Hernandez. So I still like that price tag. I don't think that's a bad price tag for a guy who's really going to go for it and fight for your dollar. So we can move back up to bantamweight for the next bet. I'm taking Raoni Barcelos to defeat Miles Johns. And this is another kind of riskier fight to bet on because Raoni Barcelos has all of the best skills in this fight. He's got the better striking by far, in my opinion, both volume and technique. He's got the better wrestling. He's got very good BJJ on the mat. But the guy is 36 years old at bantamweight. He has lost 3 of his last 4 fights. So momentum certainly not going the way of Raoni Barcelos. But against Miles Johns, I just don't see where Johns really... you could best him here. He's more of a wrestle boxer, a very low output wrestle boxer. And recently you're not seeing him even wrestle that much at all. So I think Barcelos has the edge in pretty much every area of mixed martial arts here. But it's a hefty price tag. I paid minus 214 on Raoni Barcelos, 2.14 units to win 1 in return. So a lot of these money lines, I'm just trying to just put enough investment to win 1 back, but there's a couple exceptions later on. But Barcelos, I think he's been facing a pretty high level of competition. He was a giant underdog against Umar last time. He got knocked out appropriately, but I think he can bounce back here and not have those same issues against a guy like Miles Johns, even mixing in some wrestling of his own. So give me Raoni Barcelos to pick up a bantamweight victory here. Next up, another underdog. I've got Nicholas Dalby at welterweight to defeat Muslim Salikov, plus 157 on Nicholas Dalby, 1 unit to win 1.57 in return. This is a battle between 2 aged strikers. I'm just going to let the money line do the work for me in this bout. I think it should be 50-50. I'm not sure why Muslim Salikov has such a big price tag attached to him. I think it's like minus 190 for Salikov on some books at this point. Salikov is more of a power striker, the king of kung fu, wushu sanda background. He's got good spinning attacks, some nice long powerful strikes, and uses his distance very well, and even clinches up and does some cage wrestling, attacks single legs here and there. But Nicholas Dalby is going to be the faster guy, the better mover, the more high output striker with his kickboxing or his karate style. And I just think this should be totally 50-50. I see this going to the scorecards much of the time. Salikov, I think there's some recency bias since he brutally finished by a standing TKO beatdown Andre Fiallo, but that guy's a walking punching bag after round 1. So I don't take much stock in that. Dalby is coming off of a dominant, not dominant, but a clear decisive victory over Warlley Alves in January. I'm not sure why that result was a split. I thought he clearly won that fight. And I think he wins this fight by decision as well. But again, a fight that could go either way. 2 different styles of striking with 2 older guys at the end of their career. This should be 50-50, so give me the plus money on Nicholas Dalby. Another underdog up next. This one I don't have a very good argument for, if I'm being honest with you. I am taking a 0.75 unit stab on the underdog once again, Lucas Almeida, at plus 160 to defeat Pat Sabatini. Now, this money line I paid a worse price for. You can get plus 170, plus 175 in Almeida at this point in the week. So you wait for that number to keep going up, I guess. Lucas Almeida, a very powerful Muay Thai striker. He does have a BJJ black belt, but it's going to pale in comparison to that of the wrestling and BJJ game of Pat Sabatini. And I usually in a spot like this, I would take Pat Sabatini, the grappling type that can just ground the Muay Thai striker from Brazil. But I just have a feeling that his chin gets exposed here. Pat Sabatini was in a lot of trouble early in that fight against Jamal Emmers before Emmers got his knee ripped apart in round 1. Pat Sabatini's coming off of a round 1 knockout, just 1 minute and 7 seconds against Damon Jackson last September. Front kicked him and ground and pounded him out early. So there's a lot of spots where the striking difference will be night and day in the favor of a very athletic and powerful Lucas Almeida, whose power translates into rounds 2 and rounds 3, as we saw when he fought and defeated by knockout Mike Trizano. So I'm going to take Lucas Almeida, roll the dice on him at this price tag to get the knockout here. I was thinking about adding another quarter unit to bet him by knockout, which is on FanDuel right now at plus 420, on DraftKings at like plus 360 or so. I like that one. If you're going to play this at all, that might be the side. I think that's how he wins most likely. I can't see Lucas Almeida really stuffing takedowns for most of the fight and doing the better striking work. I think either it's Pat Sabatini dominant wrestling, possibly a sub or decision, or I think it's Lucas Almeida cracking him at some point in this fight and putting him away. So, like I said, 0.75 units, just 3/4 of 1 unit on Almeida at plus 160 is what I paid for it. But I'd really recommend probably just playing Almeida by knockout at some of these big plus numbers you see, or passing on the fight. The last money line I have, number 7, is Christian Leroy Duncan at middleweight to defeat Armen Petrosyan. This is a battle between two strikers that should be exciting. I'm taking Christian Leroy Duncan at minus 145 on the money line. 2 units invested on Christian Leroy Duncan, who's an undefeated middleweight, the former Cage Warriors champion. He's 8-0. 7 stoppages, 6 by knockout, really 5 because his debut in the UFC earlier this year was a TKO stoppage from Dushko's knee injury. But he also has 1 submission. Christian Leroy Duncan can mix it up. He did it in that 1 submission as his pro record. He took down his opponent and quickly cinched up the back take and got the rear naked choke. So he's got an extensive amateur record, does Duncan, where he learned a lot of those harsh lessons early in his career versus being a pro. He lost like 6 times, mostly to grappling types of opponents. So his get-up game is really good, and his offensive takedowns are decent as well. Whereas Armen Petrosyan is a guy where he's mostly just a kickboxer. His wrestling is pretty atrocious. His takedown defense is not very good, but his get-up game is excellent. So this probably will take place at striking range. I expect Leroy Duncan to be the much more diverse striker, the much more powerful striker, and he's good out of both stances with a lot of spinning attacks and unorthodox maneuvers. So Petrosyan is more just basic output, but very good output. He'll probably land more strikes in this fight as long as it lasts. So give me Christian Leroy Duncan. I think he gets a knockout here for sure. I'm just playing the money line, but I think he's going to trap Petrosyan against the cage at some point, cut it off well, and knock him out by the end of round 1 or early round 2. So those are all 7 of the money lines. I do have a lot of recommended props as well. There's a few that I was going to play myself, but I missed the line on the first one, so let's just get right into it. My favorite prop on this card is probably Marvin Vettori in the main event versus Jared Cannonier. The fight goes over 4.5 rounds, and the fight goes to decision. I was contemplating playing this at minus 150. It's now like minus 200 or more for the over 4.5 in this fight. Vettori, super durable, not very dangerous with his strikes. Cannonier has been decently durable, especially at middleweight. And he probably will be the one threatening with the heavier punches. So I think this does go to decision in most worlds. Now that it's at minus 200, I still think it hits, but you'd probably be better off playing the fight goes to decision, just risking those extra 2.5 minutes in round 5, and that's at like minus 165 on most books now. So in addition to that I do like, now that I think about it, is Cannonier to win by decision is at plus 265 on Bovada. In a fight that I think goes to decision, the sports books things go to decision at a minus 200 to minus 210 clip. I think it's an incredibly close fight, lined pretty evenly. So Marvin Vettori to win by decision is plus 150 or so, but Cannonier by decision being plus 265, that seems off to me. I know the guy's a powerful striker, but if we're thinking this goes to decision, I'm not sure why there's a big disparity there for Cannonier to win versus Marvin Vettori. So I'm picking Vettori to win if you watched my full card breakdown, but it's a very low confidence pick. I think this is a close striking fight mostly. So The second prop I do like, but I did not play myself. Arman Tsarukyan by knockout, minus 125. It's a good prop to chop down the minus 1,000 price tag on Tsarukyan to defeat Joaquim Silva, who's been KO'd twice in his last handful of fights. Ricky Glenn and Nasrat Haqparast knocked out Joaquim Silva. So Tsarukyan could do it on the feet. He's done that before. Or he could ground this fight with his wrestling and pound out Silva with ground and pound and get the stoppage that way. I like that KO prop at minus 125. They're trying to bait you into paying either for the knockout prop or the submission prop on Tsarukyan because his inside the distance number is like minus 265. So there's a big world where he just grinds out a dominant decision here and doesn't take any risks of finishing this fight. But I do like that KO prop at minus 125 for Tsarukyan. The third prop that I have here that I was contemplating playing, but I've been talked out of it this week, and overall it's... Yeah, I could see this. I could see this hitting, but I'm already deep on the money lines. Alessandro Costa at flyweight to defeat Jimmy Flick. Inside the distance for Costa is minus 120, compared to his money line at like minus 250, minus 260, which I would not play on Costa. But Jimmy Flick's cardio is so bad. He's a true submission or bust fighter. Mostly in round one, he's getting these slick submissions. And his BJJ is really, really dangerous, but he doesn't have the cardio to last into round 2 and round 3 compared to that of Costa, who does have early finishing power, as we've seen in the past. So I could see Costa getting him out of there mostly by knockout, or there's a world where he submits Jimmy Flick just because of fatigue later in this fight. Probably unlikely, probably a knockout for Costa, but I do like that inside the distance at minus 120. Just not getting there myself in this flyweight fight. There's still quite a bit to learn about Costa at the UFC level. So the other long shot props that I will be throwing into the old generational wealth round robin. Just a long shot of groups of parlays with these props. I do like Gabriela Fernandez. If she wins, I think she does it by knockout, being the better striker in that fight with Bleda. That's plus 700. Also, I do like that round 3 knockout for Fernandez in case Bleda tires out. That's like plus 2,200 or so. But I'll just probably use that knockout prop at plus 700 for Fernandez as part of this round robin as the first one. The second one, I like Dennis Bondar by sub. I don't have a number for this yet, but I assume when it drops on the sports books, it'll be plus 200 to plus 300, somewhere in that range for Bondar by sub. I like Lucas Almeida by knockout. Again, that's anywhere between plus 350 and plus 420, depending on the sports book, over Pat Sabatini. The fourth one I like is Cannonier versus Vettori. Fight goes to split decision, which I assume will be at least plus 450, one of the default costs for it. I think it'll be plus 450. It might be plus 400, which is the lowest. I usually go with those. But the last one is the lightest of these props. Number 5 on the round robin will be Tsarukyan versus Joaquim Silva goes over 1.5 rounds at plus 125. One of the easier ones if it cashes. Plus 125 for that lightweight fight to go just 7.5 minutes. I could see Tsarukyan playing more of a risk-adverse game plan just because, this is a big risk taking on such a low-level guy, an unranked fighter in Joaquim Silva. If he were to lose this fight, slip on a banana peel from working too recklessly early, that would be so detrimental to his career. I think he will be a little bit on his P's and Q's early, and this cashes the over 1.5. So I don't have this round robin placed yet because the props are not available in all sportsbooks even at this point in the week. So the Fernandez knockout, the Dennis Bondar sub, the Almeida KO, the Cannonier Vettori fight goes to split, and the Tsarukyan Silva over 1.5. That's what I'll be popping into this generational wealth round robin. For these 5 props in a round robin, it'll probably be like a $26 investment only. So we're talking about like $1 for each of these 25 bets, $1 for all 5 parlayed together, like $26 to win several grand if it all cashes for us. But we just need 2 of these long shot plus money props to hit to be profitable. So that's all of my betting action on this card. 7 money lines, making up 4 favorites, 3 underdogs, a little bit of a round robin at the end, and some recommended props. So hit the like, hit the subscribe. Let me know how you guys are attacking this 14-fight card from a betting perspective, what your favorite bets are. And again, I'll talk to you guys very, very soon. If you guys happen to be in the Chicago area and are going to Bellator 297, I will be in attendance there. Feel free to say hi if you see me walking around drinking beer with Johnny K. Picks and Blood Money MMA Bets. We'll be going there and watching the fights. So good luck in all of your betting action. I will talk to you guys next time. Cheers.